oh, you lost your legs in the war. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And that's fine. Like, it's, sympathy is a natural reaction to somebody losing limbs. I get it. But that's not who I was. I still had a lot that I could use afterwards. And so the perception of me being this broken individual, shamed by dismemberment and also shamed by my experience in the military, totally wrong. Totally missed the mark. But at the same time, I internalized some of that. It's like, oh, poor me. Maybe I am a wounded bird. Maybe I should feel sorry for myself for not having legs. Maybe I should feel sorry for myself for the tissue loss that I've incurred. Maybe I should feel sorry for how fucking depressed I am all the time. And it was to my detriment at some points that I listened to those people.
This is Andrew Vance, and you're listening to Choose the Hard Way, where the world's top performers share lessons learned at the limits of human experience. If you enjoy this episode, please give it a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Subscribe and forward it to a friend. That helps the show surface higher in search so more people can find the inspiring stories of my guests, and I really appreciate the support. Go to choosethehardway.com to sign up for the newsletter. To suggest a guest or be in touch, you can reach out to choosethehardway@gmail.com or DM @hardwaypod on Instagram or Twitter. Saul Martinez is a former Army infantryman, a Purple Heart recipient, and the Chief Program Officer for Warriors in Quiet Waters, a nonprofit that empowers post-9/11 combat veterans to find peace, meaning, and purpose through outdoor experiences and community. A George W. Bush Institute Veteran Leadership Scholar and a subject of President George W. Bush in Portraits of Courage, Saul is a fine artist, a husband, a philosopher, and a father. In this conversation, we discuss Saul's childhood, his service, the multiple charge EFP IED that took the lives of 2 of his close friends and both of his legs, and the perspective Saul has gained on his journey since. You can find Warriors in Quiet Waters at warriorsinquietwaters.org. That link is in the show notes. High performance is for everyone. You are what you overcome. Choose the hard way.
So I was born in Hollywood, and then we lived in Los Angeles for a little while. And as we got older, my dad and mom decided to move us further east from Los Angeles in hopes that we wouldn't get involved in things like gangs or be mistaken for gang members or all of these things, all these dangers that exist in the areas that we were living in. It was better where we moved, but it was still a lot of the same. So my relationship with conflict was that still. Lots of gangs, lots of violence, lots of drug use, lots of kids doing the wrong things, but not necessarily doing the wrong things because they wanted to. A lot of them were doing it because it was necessary. And it was the only way they knew how to be. So that was my relationship, was person to person and group to group conflict. Nothing much bigger than that. And, we're talking about, gangs that were ranged in size from 10 to 150 people. And we're talking, even others that went even into like the 250 to like 300 range. And you didn't know who they were, because their ages would range also from 7 years old to 50, 60, 70 years old. Like, we're talking about kids that are being recruited and were being initiated in elementary school. And I've got pictures. I've got lots of stuff that I know kids that when we were in 4th and 5th grade, they were already in gangs. They were already in shootings. They had already been shot at. And it's like, I don't want that. I definitely don't want that. Why do you have to deal with that shit? And the relationship grew in that way. I could have easily gone into that way, because there were times where I was being recruited, where I was trying to be groomed, I guess, because I was bigger, because I was one of the bigger kids, and I was kind of smart. And that's the thing with gangs, man, and conflict in general is like the I think the greater variety and also their strength in numbers that you have in your organization, the stronger you are. So when they were trying to get me into there, it's like they were being nice to me. They were, telling me that I could be part of this family that will protect each other. And it was appealing. It really was. But seeing the results of all of that, I think, was the detractor for me. It was, I don't want to be looking over my shoulder everywhere I go. I don't want to be going to a funeral at 13 because one of my friends got shot. Just all those things. That's where conflict was for me. It was so, what's the word? It was so, like it was in a small area, like it was contained, if that makes sense. I didn't have a greater sense of the rest of the world yet.
It sounds like you had a proximity to violence and conflict as a young person. Is that fair?
Yes.
It sounds like you were a big kid. Were you like big for kids your age always?
Yes.
What was your experience of that? Just the way people interact with people who are different in any way as a young person. Did you experience anything like that?
Yes, but I don't think, maybe not in the ways most might think. Being a bigger kid, and I wasn't the tallest. I was never the tallest. I was the tallest maybe for a little tiny bit from, maybe 5th and 6th grade to maybe the end of 8th grade or so. But my mass, my size, and my strength had always been present. And the thing with that is, yes, I was treated a little differently because I was treated with hesitation. Because, where we were growing up, when you saw that, it was usually being used for the wrong reasons. Strength and agility even, and being big. People threw their size, people threw whatever advantage they had of themselves, they would project it and they would put it out there, right? I didn't do that. And looking back in hindsight, I wish I would have, but for good reasons, right? I always felt so scared and intimidated by people who were smaller than me, much smaller than me. And that was okay because I didn't know how to be anything else. I was never really, I was constantly being told like, oh, so you're big, you're going to be a football player. Oh, you're big, you're going to do fine. You're going to be great. Nobody's going to mess with you. Well, contrary to popular belief, people mess with me all the time. I got so fucking bullied all the way till like through high school. Yeah, the frequency maybe calmed down a little bit, and maybe the volume calmed down a little bit too. But man, with being a big kid, you think I wouldn't, but I did, and it sucked.
I'm sorry to hear that. And how did that show up for you? How did people target you, or what were you being bullied for?
Everything. For being fat, because I was big, and I wasn't really fat. We like to say I was husky, and with that just came that kind of shaming approach about, like, not only with kids being athletic. So like the mile run, like kids still do the mile run to this day. They test it out. They get tested on physical fitness every year. And when I was a kid, man, it took me 25. Like I couldn't even run the whole first lap of the mile run in 6th and 7th grade. And I was getting made fun of for that. I was getting made fun of for being fat. I was getting made fun of for looking the way I did. I was getting made fun of for my personality too. That's the thing. When they saw through my physical appearance and they saw what a fucking softie I was, man, they took advantage of that. They capitalized on that, and they were effective. I didn't know how to defend against it. I didn't know how to be with it. All I knew how to do was to internalize it all and think all those things were true. That maybe I was fat. Maybe I was out of shape. Maybe I was good for nothing. Maybe, girls were another thing. Like, especially coming from the dudes, like that's all that mattered to them at that age, which, yeah, kind of did. And that also was a point of of shame for me, because then they would be like, oh, look at all the girls that want to be with us, and look at all the girls that are interested in us, and none are interested in you. And so for a long time, I was just like, I guess that's true. I ain't gonna pursue nobody. But that was kind of the treatment I got, being a bigger kid. And that was before I started learning skills and being athletic. And, my dad likes to say something funny, and it's been proven it's true. He used to tell me before I turned like 13, 14, 15, he said, son, don't worry. Like, he was so comforting. But something he used to say was, son, don't worry. When the hormones kick in, you're going to become a different person. And I never knew what that meant until they started actually kicking in. And until I actually started getting in shape, until I started actually gaining confidence in myself and stopped listening to the things people were saying, because, that's something that's carried over to today that's proven true, is like, haters will always find a way to hate. They will always find a way to bring somebody down. And, just imagine if it was a world where everybody was trying to lift everybody up, instead of trying to pick out everybody's flaws or pick out everybody's insecurities. Like, man, why do that? So that was kind of a long-winded answer, but that's how, I was treated.
Where did you ultimately find that confidence?
Not until recently.
Okay.
It built over time. And so, like, from high school to, like, even while I was in sport and being pretty good at them, I didn't possess the confidence that I probably should have. I probably would have been much better. But from there to the Army, and then from the Army, then getting wounded in 2007, it was like I was still trying to find my path. And I think confidence was pretty low on the list. And it didn't actually start. I don't think I actually started gaining decent confidence in myself until probably 2014, 2015, maybe even 2016. And that was because I started choosing to let myself be okay with the things I was good at, or letting myself be okay with the things that I had been through and the things that I had been pushing through. Like, I didn't know for so long, I didn't know, the confidence piece. For so long, I didn't know that that I was part of that I could be part of that I could tap into myself for my own confidence, for my own growth, and for my own, pursuing my own purpose. Like, the things that I was doing, I thought I was doing them because of routine. I thought I was doing them just because I had to, that I should. Not even because I had to, because I thought that I should. I thought I should be trying to put my legs on every day. I thought I should be trying to walk further every day. I thought I should be maintaining my wounds every day. I thought I should be trying to keep up with my son as he grew. I thought I should be trying to be a normal person again with legs. And through all of that, like I said, really, like, pretty recently, did I realize all of those things I was doing, all of those things are fucking hard. But for the whole time, I just thought it was routine. And so I think I gained so much confidence out of that, out of the things that I was discounting, that I was doing, that weren't being acknowledged by others, which is fine, because I've rarely been a fan of external validation, except from the people who mean the most to me. Like, if it's coming from my wife, if it's coming from my family, especially from my dad, man, that confidence boost, once I started realizing, and it wasn't immediate either. It was like inching into there. It was like trying to pick out the little pieces of what was hard and what was actually suffering versus painful, and extracting that to, like, almost make me like, did you used to play Street Fighter?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ryu and Ken, how they had their balls of energy that they would throw at the opponent.
Sure.
And my brother loves Blanca, by the way. It was almost like I was taking all of that and building my ball of energy that I could use against the world, or against negative, or against adversity, or against struggle. Like that's those little things I started piecing more of those things together over time. And then fast forward to now, it's like I can find strength in everything that I do. I can gain confidence in almost everything I do, especially when I fail. Because when I fail back then, before I started this whole thought process, when I failed back then, that was it. I thought the world ended. I thought I could never be better than this. I thought I will never be better than this because of how bad this failure is, or at least how bad it was perceived to be at the time. And now I look at failure as an opportunity. And if you're not failing, you ain't trying. A lot like a good friend of mine, Jesse Laneve likes to say. He's not only a good friend, but he's probably the best fly fishing guide in all of Montana. But he told me once that if you're not getting hooked, you ain't fishing. Like if you ain't catching yourself with a hook somewhere on your body while you're casting, and you ain't catching that hook somewhere, people see that as, oh my gosh, I suck at fishing. I can never be a fisherman because I just hooked myself. To Jesse, it's like, no, if you ain't hooking yourself, you ain't fishing, man. And so I take all of those things to heart now. And I try to find strength in absolutely everything that I can, not only for myself, but to give that away. Like to any lessons learned, any insights that I'm gaining, not only for myself or what I'm doing, but also from what I'm observing, like giving that shit away, that's peaceful, man. That's comforting. So that's my journey of confidence building in a snapshot.
What changed that enabled you to connect to that confidence? Because it sounds like, as you said, it's not that the experiences you were having changed, but how you synthesize those experiences and turn them into strengths, which, I mean, it sounds, I guess saying it out loud, that sounds like, oh, okay. It's almost like flipping a switch, but that's not a simple thing to do. That's a profound transformation for a human being to experience. And for you, how did that shift occur? How were you able to do that?
I think the shift that occurred for me to actually start, synthesizing what I had been through, what I was going through, what I could go through. I think the shift just started incrementally. Just one day it probably started about the end of 2017, maybe even early 2018. And I'm not saying these things because I need visibility or anything. I'm saying it because these are things that were impossible to me growing up, that it wasn't even in the realm of possible. So like 2017, 2018, I was a subject of President Bush in his work Portraits of Courage. And that same year, I was also in a national commercial with, that was put on by AT&T. And I starred alongside, famed golfer who's actually playing in the Masters this weekend, Jordan Spieth. Two things that were just like, I don't know what to do with that kind of shit. Like I didn't know. I was just going on the path that I was walking, and landed that role in that commercial. I auditioned for it with President Bush. I had been involved with him since 2013, but those were things that I didn't know where to put all those feelings. That kind of not only recognition, but also the attention. I've never really been a fan of attention, and so with all of that coming at me, including people I haven't talked to in years, reaching out all of a sudden, oh my gosh, hey, so good to see you're doing well. Anyway, that's a different topic. But with that, I think those were all new feelings. And I think all those new feelings sparked new feelings. Like it was almost like It was like a cascade of feelings for me. Those weirdness of attention kind of sparked, okay, now sparked into like responsibility. Now I have this responsibility to be a certain type of person under this visibility. And then that responsibility kind of translated into now I have an obligation, because it keeps going. It's constant. Once those things are done, they're never going away. Once something is that visible, it's never going away. And like I tell my kids all the time, be careful when you send that text, because it's never going away. It's going to exist forever. And that especially applies for the internet and anything on TV. I mean, we could YouTube stuff from the 1920s, right? Like, it's crazy. So in that year, and also something if you don't mind my sharing, is I was going through a really hard time professionally at my job and what I was doing. Was I even happy with what I was doing? Did I find purpose in what I was doing? So that year, contrary to popular belief, between 17 and almost all of 18, it was a struggle for me, man. It was, so the combination of all that positive with all the negative, man, putting those two together and actually analyzing them, that's when the decision came, and my wife helped with this also. So it wasn't just a 1 point shift. It was over time, but I think my wife sparked the thought in me, saying that, you can be however you're going to be. She gave me permission to be however I wanted to be, and took the pressure off, because everywhere I went, I was expected to be a certain kind of guy, putting the smile on my face, always being positive, always trying to see the best in people. Cynicism doesn't exist in my universe, and then it actually does. So yeah, I'd say 2017, 2018, with all that stuff going on, that's when I started to shift my thinking.
What did it feel like to be, and what I'm hearing is you, at that point, you felt like you could actually be who you are, and you could have a full range of feelings and be like a full spectrum human being, not just something that maybe wasn't who you are.
Yes and yes. When, everything after that, it's been work. But both personally and professionally. And by work, I mean, I'm a firm believer that we're going to be who we're going to be. But the decisions we make along the way can either build that or destroy it. So being mindful of decisions has been a big part of that, and becoming who I am. Identity. Fuck, identity is huge. And something else that I've learned over this time is I can be who I am. I not only have permission, that's just a plus, from the most important people in my life to be who I am. But I also realized over time that if I'm going to be who I am, and whoever I'm sitting across from doesn't like it or doesn't try to understand it, I probably don't need that person in my life. I probably don't need their negativity of what not only their lack of understanding is of me, but also their judgment of why I am the way I am. So, man, what's his first name? David Goggins. Do you know him? He likes to say, I had to stop giving a fuck about what other people started. I'm going to say that again. He said, I had to stop giving a fuck about what other people thought about me. Because he says, you're going to be misunderstood. If you're striving for greatness, if you want to be the baddest motherfucker ever, that's what he said, then you're going to be misunderstood. And I took that to heart. Maybe not as aggressive as he, put some of those things out, but I heard it. And that was incremental change too. Is there's a difference between just straight up not caring about people not understanding you, but there's also another piece that I've been working on to this day is trying to understand why they're not understanding you. And whether it's by choice, whether it's just by lack of knowledge, whether it's just by lack of energy to understand. Maybe they got a lot going on in their life and they don't have the time to figure out why Saul, likes these TV shows that bring them so much comfort. Maybe they don't understand why, Saul likes to put movie quotes in the middle of a professional meeting to try to get everybody to understand. Like now it's more of a, I'm okay with you not understanding. I'm going to still do me. I'm going to still do what I know is best or what I feel is best. And at the other side of that, if it results in failure, at least I took a risk and being myself. Because I think people underestimate every single person. Doesn't matter who you are, what you are. I think every single person underestimates who they are and how they could be by just holding back, like letting everybody else contain you. Man, fuck that. I don't like that, not one bit. If you're you and we vibe, cool. Man, imagine the cool shit we could do together if we stay along that same vibe. And even when the frequency starts to mismatch, that's where communication comes into play. That's where you level it back out through communication. And I think that's something else other people miss when they're trying to be themselves is, oh, you took what I did offensively, so that's it. I'm cutting you off from my life. It's more like, I think there's a lot more to be had in saying, hey, man, I didn't mean like I'm just like that. Do you mind telling me why you took it the way you did? Like, maybe I can learn from that. And if their response is, fuck you, I don't want to owe you anything. It's like, okay, I tried. I took a risk. Tried to make myself uncomfortable. I tried to give you a peek into my brain and into my heart, and you didn't want to take it. That's okay. I'm okay with that. And I'm not going to hold it against you for doing so. Because the negative, like, I know I don't really have the energy for the negative because I spend so much time in it. I spend so much time in worry, and I spend so much time in chaotic outcomes of freaking irrational scenarios that I don't need more of that coming directly from another person. And I think that's something people underestimate when they're trying to be themselves, is just be yourself. How something lands on somebody, it's going to land on them how it's going to land. You have no control how it's received. And if it's received well, that's just a plus. And that's how we find our tribes too. Not only when we're vibing together, but also if we're all going in the same direction, a good direction.
I'd love to explore an idea here because I think part of what you're sharing, Saul, is this powerful idea of becoming more attuned to who you are, your intuition about yourself, becoming comfortable with that. And at the same time, I know you grew up swimming, you grew up wrestling, you grew up doing competitive cheerleading, and you later served in the military. And with what you do professionally now, you also are leveraging your experiences and who you are to serve others and to help bring out the best in them. So how do you think about that idea of most fully being who you are, and also what I perceive about you, and I could be wrong, but you seem really drawn to, like, you're a very warm person and you're drawn to service is the sense that I get.
I think your senses are on, and thank you. That means a lot to me because I do. That's another part of that self-exploration I've been trying to do is who am I? And I think that's just who I am. I try to be a warm person. I try to be a helpful person because I think that's just who I am. And that could go back to the earliest days I can remember. That could go back to the lessons I've learned from my mom and dad. That goes back to the things people have said to me over time. And redirecting that energy or utilizing it for the betterment of others. I think that serves my purpose right now. Will it be that forever? Maybe not. But I also wish I would have realized that sooner, because I think not only my work would have been more focused, but it would also have been better had I realized that, hey, you know what? This is my purpose right now. There was a lot of pressure on purpose as well of what it should be and shouldn't be. And I unfortunately listened to some of those people where, unlike you getting it spot on, those people totally missed the mark on who they thought I was. And I made the mistake of listening to them. And those resulted in some failures.
Who did they think you were?
They thought I was, a lot of the time they thought I was this, okay, I was in the Army, so that must mean I was a tough guy. Okay, you're big, bald, and Mexican. That must mean you have a rough history, which kind of true, but kind of not. Because while I was surrounded in that environment of gang violence and drugs and addiction, I wasn't necessarily part of it all the time, or as much as I could have been. So they kind of missed that mark. The other mark they missed was I was a wounded bird. Oh, you lost your legs in the war. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And that's fine. Like, it's, sympathy is a natural reaction to somebody losing limbs. I get it. But that's not who I was. I still had a lot that I could use afterwards. And so the perception of me being this broken individual, shamed by dismemberment and also shamed by my experience in the military, totally wrong. Totally missed the mark. But at the same time, I internalized some of that. It's like, oh, poor me. Maybe I am a wounded bird. Maybe I should feel sorry for myself for not having legs. Maybe I should feel sorry for myself for the tissue loss that I've incurred. Maybe I should feel sorry for how fucking depressed I am all the time. And it was to my detriment at some points that I listened to those people. Yeah, I kind of steered away from your main question, I think.
No, that's okay. No, thanks for sharing that. And we've talked a little bit about that. Sounds like a pivotal moment, that 2017 timeframe when you started to, again, what I'm hearing is you started to really tune into your sense of who you actually were versus maybe what other people were saying and what their expectations were of who you should be. And once that you started to go through that transition, how did that what manifested in your life? Like, what outcomes came about as a result of that? And what was your emotional experience of it? How did you start to feel? How was it different? And how did you grow from there?
Yeah, how did I grow? There's a few different ways from all of that. Not only the manifestation of it, because when things manifest, to me that sounds like something sticks, because it takes that long for it to manifest itself, right? Manifestation isn't overnight, and that's big. So I think some of the ways I grew when I stopped listening to the wrong people, listening to the wrong things, and started trying to be myself more and tap into my potential even, is, one of the ways I grew was productivity. And by productivity, I mean at home, because I poured everything I had into my job. And unfortunately, my family caught the not so good stuff about me pouring absolutely everything I had into a job. A job that I love no less, but then there were some consequences. There was lack of time. So anyway, with the productivity piece, one of the big things was I learned how to bring that energy home. Doing it at work, that's all well and good. But when I decided, hey, what are the little things that I can do that can give me more energy so I can be a better dad and a better husband, a better friend, a better nephew, a better son? Man, why don't I just take that shit home and try to have the same feelings about work? I love being at home. I love watching my kids smile. I love doing nice things for my wife. I love writing friends notes. I love calling my mom. I love calling my dad. All of these things that I was slacking on so bad. So that's one way I grew. So that's choosing to bring that energy home. It didn't happen overnight, but over time, now it's like second nature. I'm leaving one job and I'm coming home to where I'm leaving my job and I'm coming home. Like, those are the two things now. I'm leaving my job, I'm coming home. Both of them are their own worlds, and both of them, I feel, deserve a certain amount of energy from me. And so that's increased over time. I make my bed every morning. That's, Admiral McCraven, make your bed. And side note on that, if Admiral McCraven hears this, sir, it sucks doing that shit for the first month. It just does. But it also says to do it because, even when you don't want to, like, that's discipline, right? You got to do things even when you don't want to. Or like Mike Tyson says, whether you're a fan of him or of him or not, he says discipline is doing what you hate like you love it. So between them two dudes and trying to make my bed, that sparked other things, other parts of productivity. I can't even leave a hotel room now without making my damn bed. So thank you, Admiral McCraven. I appreciate you, sir. But so the growth pieces, that's one. Deciphering job and work versus home.
Can you say more about that, Saul? Because just like that, keeping job world and home world separate and giving them, it sounds like, equally intense levels of attention. Because I think that's a thing that a lot of people in the world, it's just so hard stepping away from having your head in your profession, something you're passionate about, transitioning into the home environment and having presence, like just being present. And like you, I'm a father. I have young children, and time goes fast, right? They're not going to be little people who love you forever. I mean, I'm sure they love you in different ways as they age, but it changes, right? But every moment you have with your kids and your family it's precious, and then it's over, right? Like, life goes fast. So I'm curious about a couple of things. One, is this something that you realized on your own, or did the people around you bring it to your attention? And when did you know, like, gosh, like I have to make a change here, and this is what I want to do? And if you don't mind sharing, but I'm just curious what that was like for you.
Did I realize it on my own? No. Maybe a tiny bit. It's like one of those, it's like when you leave the pile of dirty laundry on the couch and you think you're going to fold it that day, and then it sits for a week or on the chair. Everybody has a chair in their house where the dirty laundry sits for a week or longer. It was like that, where I knew I needed to do it. I just didn't want to, because of how much energy I didn't have, or because of how much drive I didn't have to do that, when I know I absolutely positively needed to. So I didn't really realize it on my own. My wife helped me realize that. And that's because she saw all the hours, all the weekends, all the nights, everything that I was doing for my job. And she would drop little hints here and there about, your kids missed you today. It's like, yeah, I know, I missed them too. Little hints like, I was looking forward to watching our show together tonight. I was too. I'm sorry. And over time, those little things, the little hints became bigger markers. They became signs. And then my kids jumped in the mix. Then the kids would say, "Gosh, Dad, you're gone a lot." And man, and I think you know this, when your kids say stuff like that, if it doesn't drive a dagger right into your heart, you might not be the dad you want to be. And so between my wife, between my kids, and even my mom and dad, and even some of my friends, where they're just like, "Man, all you do is work." Like Tiana from Princess and the Frog, if anybody's ever seen that one. When Tiana's working so hard as a waitress at 3 different restaurants to earn all the money for her restaurant that she was going to name and honor her father, and her friends were inviting her to go dancing, and they said, "Tiana, all you do is work." Man, it drove home on that too. It's like, so then it became a shift. And I can't pinpoint exactly when that was, but it was definitely within the last 2 years. And once I started doing that and contributing more in little ways over time, like right now, you could ask my kids if they got home from school, "What's your dad like right now?" They would say, "I'm productive." They would say, "I'm involved," and they would say, "I have energy." And I'm proud of that. Because that's what I'm striving for right now. That's where I feel like my purpose in the home needs to be, is for them to see me as reliable, for them to see me as consistent, and for them to see me as proactive. A lot like people see me at work and anywhere else I go for that matter. So yeah, my family helped me realize that, is I needed to separate, not only separate, I needed to have a good relationship between work and home, and everything that has to do with home. And then, so yeah, when did I know? I don't really know. I just know I started doing little things with the energy that I did have, and the energy that I would conjure out of straight up love and out of straight up wanting to be better. That's when it started. And I'd say it's probably about 2 years ago. And a little bit in before that, here and there, but no consistency. It was bursts of trying. That's what it was before that. So yeah, that's how I realized that I need to do it. And also Mr. Rogers had a helping hand in that as well. I don't know if you know Mr. Rogers, or if people listening are going to know Mr. Rogers, but he had a move that I didn't really notice until I was an adult. And that move was, whenever his show started, the first thing he would do was change his sweater. He would change his sweater and he would put his slippers on, or put different shoes on. And later on, we found out he would do that to differentiate from the world to comfort, to home, to love, to all of these other good things. That was his transition point, was putting his beautiful cardigan sweater on the coat rack and putting a different one on to signal his body, his heart, his mind that he was home now. And now it was time to give all these wonderful feelings and give all these wonderful words to all these wonderful children that were watching. So yeah, combination of everybody.
And on the work, so you talked about your purpose in the home and how you've connected to that, and how your kids are experiencing that, which is awesome. They're seeing you the way you would like for them to see you. And if there are any other parents out there, I'm sure we all have those moments that you're right. Like, it's like a knife in your heart when a kid says something to you and you're like, oh, like I'll just share one with you. At one point, my son told me, Dad, like, why aren't you at dinner? Right? Because like I kept missing dinner because of things I, was doing with work. And I realized, my son doesn't get that much time with me, and I have to do something to reprioritize this, because that's not right. And I'm not showing up the way I want to in my home, which is actually the very most important job that I have. is like being a dad to these kids who I love, and I want to show up in a way that I'm proud of, that makes them feel loved, that makes them feel safe and confident, so that they can grow and express themselves and be free and whoever they want to be. And it's, you know, some people might say, well, whatever, like parents have to do stuff and children have to understand that parents aren't always going to be around. But for me, there's just something about that. It's like, why aren't you sitting down and at the table when we start dinner? Some version of that coming from, you know, a 5-year-old. And I was like, okay, this has to change. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, this actually has to change starting today. And like, I never want to hear that come out of my son's mouth again, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Big deal, man.
But equally, as you shared, you also have a tremendous passion for what you do at your job. And can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is your passion and why do you love what you're doing? And what is your purpose in that space?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Before I do, though, do you mind if I say one more thing on the parenting?
Yeah, aspect? Go for it. Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge all those people and all those parents that are trying their fucking best. We're talking about and I'm talking about everyone, with especially those dudes and gals who have like back-breaking jobs.
Oh yeah.
Like roofers, bricklayers, everybody that sets up the infrastructure and that do impossible things to maintain it all for us and I'm kind of paraphrasing Jordan Peterson there, because, you know, people build impossible things and you guys maintain them. Like the way we function in our world is due to all of those people who do all those hard jobs and probably don't physically have the energy to even lift a finger to eat their own dinner, let alone trying to be productive and all these things to their kids. You know, I want to throw that shout out to all of y'all, because I know you're trying your best and I know the energy might not be there. Whatever you can and whatever you do, just keep doing your best and they're going to see you're doing your best. So with my job at Warriors in Quiet Waters, I'm the Chief Program Officer. And what we do there, we do quite a few things there, but, you know, after years of paying service to our country, post 9/11 combat vets, they have a new critical mission, and that's finding their purpose in civilian life. So through the outdoor experiences, especially fly fishing that we offer, and a community that feels like a family, Warriors in Quiet Waters, we empower veterans and their loved ones to find fulfillment and purpose in their life after service. And a big part of what I do is I not only find all of our participants, but I also evaluate them and I also select them. And unfortunately, not everybody can get selected based on the criteria. And then I also place them on our fishing experiences throughout the year. And that's a big part of my job, but I also manage a program team that consists of 5 of us. And that team, I tell you what, Warriors in Quiet Waters has in the program team 4 fire and forget weapons of productivity and efficiency. And I'll just say their names. Their names are Audrey, Casey, Ano, and Jesse. They just absolutely rock it in every way that you can think of professionally, but it's a rare thing for an employer, for any professional staff, to have people that actually care, that are motivated about not only what their jobs are, but also who we serve. And I'm just really lucky to be there. I'm really lucky to have the team I have. And for the rest of the staff at Warriors in Quiet Waters, everybody is going in that same direction. Like everybody cares about what we do. But that's what I do. I bring combat vets out into Montana for not only all of the benefits, you know, scientific and anecdotally about fly fishing itself, but also to help them thrive after they leave.
And how did you become involved with Warriors in Quiet Waters? What drew you to this?
Yeah. So in 2009, I was still active duty in the Army. And I mean, I'll spare the recruitment process back then, because it's much different than what it is now. But I was asked to come to Warriors in Quiet Waters in late 2008. and I declined because I was really busy at the time. I did a little bit of rehab and therapy for prosthetics and learning to walk again. And I knew my time in the Army wasn't up. So I asked the Army to let me stay in. They gave me a different job, which was a squad leader for the Warrior Transition Unit there at Balboa Naval Medical Center. An Army guy in a naval base, that's a different story as well, which it's a good one. But finally, I was asked again to come out to Warriors in Quiet Waters. And at that time, I was like, you know what? I could use a break for myself. I could use what you guys are putting out for us combat vets. So I came, and that's where I discovered Montana. Not only discovered Montana, but also realized like a thunderstruck moment, an epiphany telling me that this is where you need to be. Not just to be here right now in this moment for your growth. It was telling me you need to be here in general. You need to move here. You know, I was never going to be an infantryman again in the Army. At that time, I was going to reclass to a different job in the Army so I could stay in, because that was the path that I thought I was supposed to be on. Was, okay, I know this happened, but I got to stay in the Army, however that looks. But when I was in Montana, that feeling just got stronger and stronger and stronger. So we get to Wednesday of that week, Thursday of that week, and it turned into, you need to be here after the Army. That feeling turned into, no, you need to be here now. You need to be here. You need to get out of the Army, do it right, and you need to move your family up here. Because at that time, my son was 1. So that's how I got involved. And then from 2011 to 2015, I was a volunteer. I was a warrior advisor and also a companion and also a team leader. And then in 2015, that's when I applied, had some pretty stiff competition, and was brought on as staff. And then fast forward to now, almost 7 years later, being staff, it's a wonderful place to be.
And when you had that initial experience and your intuition was telling you like, hey, this is actually not just an experience I'm having, this is actually where I have to be, this is my future. How did that show up, and why did you listen to that voice?
It showed up in 2 ways, both in a feeling and also in a physical sense, really. I didn't realize it, but to that point, my face had been so tight. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, I was a smiling kind of guy, but I was also going through a lot. This was only my second year after being wounded. I still didn't know how to walk fully. I still didn't know what the future held. I didn't know how long my legs would let me walk. I didn't know all of these things. So my face was just tight. And then the other feeling was right here, was like, you know, the place just below your sternum, above your stomach, that it's like a charge in there, that it feels so strongly, like you could almost tap into it. The combination of both of those things, my face loosened up. Like I felt relaxed, actually relaxed, and not tense, and not just waiting for the next increment of pain. Like I was just relaxed. That combined with the feeling I had right below my chest, and that's hard for me to explain too, is when you have that feeling, that's something I've tried to tune into more as well, is my intuition and what my gut tells me. You know, a lot of people say your gut is the way, right? Yeah, it might be, only if you listen to it and know how to listen to it. And so then at that point in my life, I didn't really know how to listen to it. I know I had this intuition thing. I know I had this kind of gut feelings thing where it would usually take me in the right direction. But at that point, man, I felt it. Like that was the first time it was so overwhelming that I had no choice but to feel it. And when my face loosened up too, that was it for me. I just knew that this was where I needed to go.
And subsequently, how did you continue to cultivate that connection with your intuition and gut? Like, did it keep showing up in that same way for you with that physical feeling? And when you got that, you were like, oh, this is the message, I need to pay attention? Or did it show up in different ways?
A little bit of both. And like with any skill, repetition and practice. And my job actually afforded me that. Was not, maybe not as strong a feeling as, maybe not as big a thing as like transplanting your entire family to another state that you've never been to before this time. Maybe not always as big as that, but also when that feeling is just enough, it's there, but you necessarily don't listen to it. But like, so with repetition, what I mean is, like, at my job, for every warrior, guide, and volunteer that I've placed over the past 7 years, it's been over 1,500 people that I've matched together. About 30 of them were less than ideal, and it's a 98% accuracy rate. So even starting those first couple of years, I just thought everything was happening by accident. I thought every pairing I made, every connection that I made with other people who had never met each other, the whole time I didn't really fully understand that I was going by my gut most of the time. Like, yeah, I was piecing other bits of information together, like branch of service, like age, like where are they from, like where's the volunteer from, what's their background, what's their personality like based on what I just talked to them about on the phone. Putting all those factors into this formula of pairing. Yeah, I was doing all that, but at the same time, I thought everybody could do this. I thought anybody could do this. And I was just doing a job and accidentally doing it well. And after more time, maybe after the first couple of years, that's when I started thinking, every time that I do the pairings, I had a similar feeling of like my epiphany when I was here. And also other times where I felt that kind of intuition in my gut. So then I decided to start listening to that. And if I get to a place where it doesn't feel good, it's probably wrong. And it probably sounds too simple, but to me it's that simple. And trying to focus on that is, if it doesn't feel good, chances are it's not the right answer. If that feeling, that charge in here feels good, and it starts like sprinkling throughout your body, it's probably the right answer. It's probably the good answer. Or on the flip side of that, if you're feeling that way in a certain way in your gut about a person that you're meeting for the first time, or if you've known them for a long time, you got to listen to when that thing comes up. And that's also repetition. Is, for every pairing that I started making, every conversation I would have a feeling afterwards, whether it was good or bad. Honing in and feeling what it felt like would tell me which decision to make. If that makes any sense at all.
No, that completely makes sense. And while we can't change the past, I'm curious, once you became more connected to your intuition, as you thought backwards in time over the course of your life, did anything jump out at you where your intuition, in retrospect, you realize like, whoa, my intuition was really powerfully telling me to go in one direction and I ignored it. I went in this other direction and there was some consequence. Was there anything like that when you look backwards?
Yeah. And it's something I haven't thought of in a long time, man. So thank you for asking. And I don't know how this is going to land on my parents, and that's okay, because we have a relationship that we could talk. But in retrospect, I wanted to join the Army right as soon as I graduated. I felt it in retrospect, I felt that feeling that strongly then. And it was good. It felt good. It felt right. And ultimately, after talking to my parents, I kind of felt guilty for wanting to leave or for wanting to join the military. And fast forward through the 3 years up until I actually joined. So from 18 to 21, I didn't have a thought about joining the military again because of how bad I felt. But then it hit me again right after my 21st birthday, which was, everything in those 3 years was just a lot of the same stuff. It was a lot of the same Bloomington stuff. I had a job. I had a few jobs, actually. Forklift operator, working in a warehouse, all these things where my path was kind of decided for me. And honestly, I was okay with that for some points. But then when this other time hit, it hit me, man, what's the word? It hit me so fiercely one day, shortly after my 21st birthday, that it was like, it's time. It's time. Because if you don't, not only are you going to do yourself a disservice, you're not going to be true to who you are. Because I've always wanted to serve growing, and that connection or that drive grew, especially through high school and especially after 9/11, was I always wanted to serve from that point. And when that feeling hit me again so fiercely, yeah, it was really similar. But I didn't really know it. I just knew that I felt it. I didn't think it was like a gut thing. I didn't think it was like an intuition thing. Honestly, I didn't even really know what that word meant back then. Like, you're talking to a guy who barely graduated high school. Probably not because of lack of IQ or anything like that, but I was just so busy doing other things. I was so busy in all of my sports that ultimately, as good as sports were, it was a distraction from my academics. So at that time, yeah, that's, in retrospect, that was another time that it hit me so fiercely, was when it was time to join the Army.
And underneath that feeling and intuition that you had, why did you feel so deeply compelled to serve? Why did you want to be in the military?
Yeah, so that feeling started getting stronger probably when I want to say it started freshman year of high school. Everything before that, and that was also, in retrospect to everything growing up as a kid. So freshman year of high school, I started grasping more concepts and more things about how lucky am I to have been born in the United States, and also how lucky has our family been to be here in the United States. We couldn't do a lot of the things we're doing in a lot of other places in the world. There's places in the world where in high school, had I talked to that kind of girl in a different country, the consequences would be physical and dire. Little things like, oh, you want to start a business? Go ahead and start a business. Versus in other countries, it's like, oh, good luck starting a business. We ain't going to help you. You can't do that because the people who, anyway. So little things like that. And also, I'm a big feelings guy, and I'm a big joy and happy guy. A lot of my childhood, when it comes to my family, my big Mexican family, consisted of a lot of joy and a lot of happy. Everything outside, work wasn't really part of their daily, work wasn't really part of their identity. We never really talked about work. My dad, I could tell you maybe 5 things that he's ever told me about his job, up until very recently too, is like, that's what the focus was being happy, eating great food, and supporting each other. So with all of that, over time, those feelings grew as like, man, would we have all of that and be able to have that for each other if we were somewhere else? Based on what I'm learning in school, I don't think so, especially not Mexico. That being said, though, my family in Mexico, that's all I've ever known from them, even though they have next to nothing, is just happy and joy and love. So all of that combined, that feeling turned into, man, I really want to protect this. And I think the military is the way for me to do that. So that feeling just grew stronger and stronger and stronger. And then 9/11 hit. And at that point, it wasn't a matter of if. I was going to join the military. At that point, it was a matter of when, which I think is why when I decided not to join right after graduation, why I was so disappointed in myself, because I ignored that strong gut feeling. I think that's what it does to you when you ignore it. I think it goes away for a little while, because that type of, I also feel like that type of intuition and that type of gut feeling, when you ignore it, it's not like giving a relationship enough attention, right? Eventually it just fizzles out. So I think the more attention and the more love you can give back to yourself and to your gut, to your intuition, and actually realize everybody can possess that, the better off you'll be. So yeah, that's what made me want to join the military, was protection of what I had and what I knew, and also protection of what could be and what others could have.
And do you feel once you served, like once you were in the military and looking back now, did you get out of it what you thought you would get? And how did it relate to those gut feelings that you had when you entered?
Yeah, I think I got a lot more out of it than what I was expecting, because honestly, my perception of the military was so naive. It was this grand, almost like from the movies, I'm going to join the military and this is how it's going to be. It's going to be a Yankee Doodle good time. But what I gained out of it, I think, were totally unexpected. And I think unexpected lessons are really strong. So, one of those things was like the routine, the instilling discipline, the values, and actually laying out values, because before that, they were just kind of implied. They were never listed. And in the Army, it's funny because they list your values for you. And that's okay, because those values include things like integrity and loyalty. They're not anything bad. They're just listed. And I was good with that. So I gained that, is like, it's okay to list your values, whatever they are to you. Another thing I gained out of that was observation of leadership, and also being a product of leadership. So a lot of which I learned from my dad growing up. And it was nice to see that connection, that familiarity in certain things that my dad did versus what my leaders in the military did. Granted, not every one of them was a good leader. There were quite a few dirtbags I came across. And then, going back to the gut feeling, listening to my gut of how to listen to who. And I tell you what, had I listened to the wrong people and ignored my gut, who knows what my career in the military would have been like. Probably would have been shit if I listened to some of those dirtbags. And I call them dirtbags in the most loving sense. They're probably okay people. They were just bad at their job, which I'm okay with. But I didn't want to be a product or an extension of their bad leadership. So that's a few of the things that I gained out of the military, out of the Army, and what I've learned. My wounds and losing Kyle and Blake when I got hit by the IED in 2007. That's its own. I think that's its own set of lessons. Being wounded so traumatically and catastrophically, I think transcends any type of organizational hierarchy or the lessons that come out of that, or the struggles even, I think, are their own.
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I would love to, if you allow me.
Yeah, of course.
Because honestly, that's where a lot of the cool stuff has happened, is through struggle and honestly through some suffering. So there was this whole world that I knew in the Army. I was an infantryman. At that time in Iraq, I was on my brigade commander's security detachment. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I was okay with that. It was fine. Then comes the day we got hit. It was a 6-charge, or it was a 6 array EFP, so 6 charges in one IED. And for those that don't know, an EFP is a explosively formed penetrator or projectile. It's essentially a cylinder capped on one side with a copper plate, and the backside capped with a detonator and containment, and then in between, it's packed with shrapnel, explosive, you name it. That copper plate transforms into a giant hot bullet that shreds through anything. And when I say anything, it shred through our 400-pound up armor doors like they weren't even there. It even blew 2 of them off. Something that had been said to be impossible. Almost like when people were talking about the Titanic being unsinkable, when those new 1151 Humvees came out, they thought, ain't nothing getting through this. But we learned very soon after, that EFP will shred through anything. And so that's what hit us. And as a result, Kyle Little from West Boylston, Massachusetts, and Blake Stevens from Pocatello, Idaho, died instantly. I did not. I should have. Logic says that I should have. Physics say that I should have. The overpressure alone from that big of an IED should have just killed me. Instead, I have the blessing and the curse of remembering almost everything from blast to getting on the bird to Baghdad. And that's been confirmed by talking to my medic and talking to my squad leader at the time, Mike Henderson, and my medic, Stephanie McCulley, who obviously is a female. And if anybody would ever like to chat about females in combat, I am down. I am down, and I am happy to, because of Stephanie McCulley. She is, I wouldn't be here without her, man. I was saved by a woman in combat, and it's beautiful. So anyway, so some of the lessons that came out of losing my legs, as well as, a big one. This is a big wound that I don't ever really talk about. But I lost a good chunk of tissue on the right side of my ass. And that was actually the most critical of the wounds that I had on that day, because with my legs, this one kind of looked like spaghetti, my right one. My left one was kind of still there, but it was in pieces, yet tethered together by tendon. And I don't know, I'm sorry if I'm going too descriptive, but it was kind of held together through my own anatomy and all the components that make up a leg, right? Whether it's bone, tendon, muscle, cartilage, all of the above. So that my left leg was still you could still tell it was kind of a leg. And both of those, standard practice, tourniquet, stop the bleeding, good to go. Except when they got me out, Stephanie was like, "Oh fuck, you're still bleeding." And sure enough, they turned me over a little bit and they look at my backside. There was my entire right backside just filleted open. Yeah. And man, talk about Stephanie. She took every dressing that she had, that she could, and was getting more from the other trucks as the dudes were bringing them. Mike was right there by her side, helping her every step of the way. But Stephanie, without hesitation, man, knew exactly what she had to do, which was take every dressing that she could and stuff it right into where my body was filleted open and hold it there until the bleeding stopped or they figured out a new way to stop the bleeding. And if you come across, if you've ever seen the inside of a human fucking body and didn't hesitate, I mean, that's a hard thing to do. That's a hard thing for anyone to do, even with training, even with seeing visuals, even with seeing movies, even with seeing anything. It is different when you can touch, see, and smell what the inside of a human body looks like. And she was looking at mine all the way into me. Now, that sounds a little weird, but I hope you all get what I mean. So that was another one. I should have died just from the blood loss alone. And now fast forward over the past 15 years, the things that have resulted just out of that one catastrophic attack, because let's be clear, it wasn't an accident, it wasn't an incident, it was an attack from an enemy who is very good at bringing harm to Americans because we're infidels, or at least that enemy at that time. It's so between, man, and we could talk about this forever, but I want to try to keep it short. Anybody who's been through trauma knows that trauma is trauma. It sticks with you. Sometimes that trauma makes it feel like you're theirs. And over time, kind of an overarching theme is I figured out that, the traumas are mine. I get to choose how I carry them. I get to choose how heavy my pack is with them. And it's at those times that I've learned over time is when they try to make you feel like you're theirs, when they try to make you feel powerless, when they try to make you feel like what they are telling you is real, those are the most dangerous spots to be in, because that's when they could seduce you. So that's one overarching theme. The physical aspects of it, and this goes for anybody who's been through any kind of physical pain, just breaking an arm, breaking a collarbone, breaking a leg, doing something fun, like that shit, that's fun. That's where I've realized is pain, no matter who you are. Yeah, your level of pain might be different than mine, but to me, pain is pain, and it does not discriminate. And so, so that's something else I've struggled with over time. And when I say struggle, it's probably not the right word, but I get person after person after person after person trying to discount or discredit their own experiences in pain and in trauma because they make a comparison to me or somebody like me or another amputee. And it's like, that is not fair to yourself, man. Like I try to talk the best I can through that with people. And I really feel like most of the time we get to the end of that conversation and they still feel the same, which makes me think I didn't do a good enough job of explaining, hey, my pain is mine. Yours is yours. And we could find common ground in pain. Like we could find a connection in pain because I don't want to compare mine to yours. And it sucks because I know people like that where they put themselves on a fucking pedestal of pain. Oh, I've experienced this and nobody else could ever get through it. And I know that sounds a little whiny, but to me, it's a crossroads between, yeah, that's yours to own. That's yours to feel how you want. But at the same time, what good are you accomplishing by putting yourself in that position of comparison or people to compare themselves to you? So that's another one is the comparison of pain. I don't have one. Yeah, I've been through unimaginable shit, but I prefer people not to be in it. Because I know what it's like to be in it, and I prefer to help them get through it as positively as they can, even when it sucks, even when you don't even want to move some types of pain people have, even when you don't want to eat, even you can't eat. I mean, there's people that can't even perform their own daily bodily functions required for a human being to thrive. And people want to sit there and make comparisons to that. Like here I am making a comparison to that. And it's like not only the quicker, but I think the more efficiently we can move each other through pain the stronger we'll be after that. Yeah, we're going to gain strength no matter what. And we don't know that yet. Most people don't know that yet. Is like, once you get through whatever you're going through, you're going to be stronger, whether you like it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not. But if we can be more intentional about that and trying to guide people through the process of pain and healing, a good buddy of mine named John Hosey, he's been healing from stuff for the past 3 years. And he has just stayed positive. He has just stayed a family man, a man of faith. And man, guys like that inspire the fuck out of me. Is because the longer you have to ride this wave of pain, not even ride it, the more you got to get crashed on by this wave of pain. Man, as long as you could get up for air, you could keep going. So that's another lesson I've learned is pain. It's a great equalizer as well as common ground. And I think one more I want to share is the ability to gain discipline through routine care. So I guess an example of that is a long time ago, I decided I'm going to put my legs on every day. Granted, there's times in between I don't want to put my legs on because they hurt so bad. I don't want to put my legs on because I know how much walking is in front of me on this day. But making that conscious choice to say to put my legs on every day, no matter what, has now, at that, oh man, I want to say I made that choice probably in 2011. Yeah. So over the past 11 years, that process has now just turned into habit. That process has turned into routine, which has turned into other things. So just by me putting my legs on, being out of my wheelchair has allowed me to do things, has allowed me to have a job. And not saying that you can't have a job in a wheelchair. I know plenty of people who have jobs. And I know plenty of people who are so incredibly productive given the situation that they have, being either wheelchair bound or, totally dependent on an assistive device, that it's like, man, you go, girl, you go, boy, you do that shit. I know it's hard. Like, and that's, you know what? I'm going to shoot off on a quick tangent. And it's the same vein, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
Okay. When people with disabilities, that's something else that I've learned over time, is I've been immersed in that community, being a disabled person myself, and seeing, interacting with, spending time with, competing with a variety of conditions and illnesses and all of the above, right? When I see people in public that I know for a fact, I can see and imagine their struggles at home, or what it took just for them to get up in the morning. Most recently, me and my family were at Disneyland a few weeks ago, and there was a dude working the front gates where you go into Disneyland, working the turnstiles. I looked at that dude and the smile on his face, and he was a paraplegic, from what I could tell, and just smiling, being happy, taking all the looks that he was getting, like the kind of look where it's almost people don't know how to interact with this person. That's something I just want to say, and something that I've learned. People who have not only visible disabilities, but also ones that come out verbally, maybe, a little bit of compassion and a lot of bit of realizing that they are just a person like you goes a long fucking way. Long way. And even just acknowledging that I know it was hard for this person to get up in the morning. I know it was hard for this person to get to this point in their life. Like, their chances of success were probably really low. So when you see somebody out there and they're just cruising along and they're just doing their best in a walker, in a wheelchair, getting pushed, whether it's motorized, how much movement they have, how much mobility they have, it doesn't matter. They're people. Treat them as such. That's something else I've learned. that goes a long way, because then it, honestly, to me, it makes me feel normal instead of being instead of being like, oh man, I don't really have a good example. I don't really have a good example for that, but hopefully it's coming across what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Okay. So that's another lesson I've learned, is just, man, equality and treating people with kindness. That goes a long way. I firmly believe that, and something else I've learned over time, not only as a result of my wounds, but also through interacting with people, is like, kindness goes a long way until somebody doesn't deserve it anymore. And I think the longer that fuse is for you, or the longer you can make that fuse, the better. Because honestly, I think there's a lot of people in this world who look for that, who look for negative emotion, who look for conflict, who look for discouragement, who look for breaking people down. Like, it's not saying those people are evil. I'm just saying those people like to look for that kind of shit, and I don't. Because in my experience, I've found that not looking for that stuff is way better than trying to seek it. So yeah, that was kind of a jumble of some of the lessons I've learned, but from being wounded, transcending the army or transcending the military lessons, these are human things. To me, they're human things that anybody could struggle with at any point in time. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 hours. Yeah, we got our calendars. Yeah, we got a busy life. But on that day, I was planning on living the rest of my career as a whole person physically. Getting hit by an IED and being dismembered, yeah, that was a thought. But I also thought that we were well trained enough to spot that kind of thing, or to get through it all without losing anybody. And yet here we were that day. My world went topsy-turvy.
And when you look ahead with the work that you're doing now, what is the legacy that you hope to create, and how do you want to share what you've learned through the work that you're doing, through the presence that you have with your family, through how you show up in the world, through things like, and I'll drop this link in the show notes, through things like the TEDx talk that you did recently, which was incredibly powerful. I found it to be really profound. So, I know I shared with you, it really touched me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. And what's ahead for you?
I think what's ahead for me, I honestly don't know, because right now I'm in the mode of just following what feels best, and I don't know where that's going to lead. I can see my job in my future, for sure, at least for a while, until something as profound as when I was first year hits me, and I know that's another direction I need to go. The other thing I could see ahead is being a dad. I want to be the best dad that I can be, that my kids need me to be. I would like to be the best husband I can be, because that's, with marriage and kids, my wife and I like to say, kids, y'all are going to be gone at some point. When they see my wife and I interacting in a certain way, or they see me doing something special for my wife, or vice versa, sometimes the kids get a little jealous. Sometimes the kids get a little like, why didn't you bring me flowers randomly on a Thursday? Like, why didn't you randomly buy me something that costed $100? And me and my wife like to tell them both, it's like, we give you guys plenty, but she's going to be the one I'm stuck with when you guys are gone. and I'm going to be the one she's stuck with when you guys are gone, because that's also our goal, is to cruise our marriage until as far as it can possibly go. And right now it has no end in sight, and I hope it stays that way. You know, my wife being a marriage counselor, she's optimistic, but also a little bit of a cynic based on what she's seen, and that's okay. I just know if we ever reach that point that we'll be able to communicate. So that's a little bit of what I see for me in the future. A little more of what I see in the future is something that's getting stronger and has been over time. I love movies. With every fiber of my being. I fucking love movies. I love everything about them. And recently I was actually in a movie, and it's coming out later this year. It's called Mending the Line. It's a short bit. It's a monologue, and it's with Cinco Walls and Brian Cox. If anybody knows him, he's a wonderful actor. And that, I kind of just fell into that as well. That was one of those things. It's just the path that took me on. So now that I've gotten a taste between the commercial I did in 2017 and actually acting with professionals, with dudes like Brian Cox and Cinco Walls, now that I've kind of had a taste for what it looks like in that environment, I could see myself going there. But that feeling is not stronger than what I feel my purpose is right now. And right now I feel my purpose is at my job at Warriors in Quiet Waters, and being a dad and being an advocate and being a mentor, and just trying to be the best that I can be, and also trying to be better than I was yesterday. And wherever that goes, I'm okay with it. So that's what I think the future is for me. There's a lot of unknowns.
The unknown can take us to unexpected and awesome places. So that's great. I mean, to go back to a couple of things that you shared that for me right now are connecting to where you've taken us. You know, there's the Admiral McRaven thing, and, you know, make your bed every day, right? And you shared this within the context of your life. I think a practice that you had, a discipline that you had, was you made this decision: I'm going to put my legs on every day, no matter what. And the compounding effect of discipline and doing certain things every day over time can take us to really unexpected places. And in some way, the practices that you've had and that you've so graciously shared with me and our listeners today, it's taking you to the place where you are now, and to things like you said, like, you know, getting to act with Brian Cox and all these other incredible things that you've experienced in your lifetime, and the powerful work that you're doing with Warriors in Quiet Waters. So I just want to say thanks for being here today, Saul. Thanks for everything that you've shared. And if people want to learn more about you and Warriors in Quiet Waters, where can they go?
Oh, totally. They could go to warriorsandquietwaters.org, or they can go to wqwf.org, and all of the information about our programs is on there. My contact info is on there, as well as the rest of the team. Or you could call our office at 406-585-9793. But wqwf.org is probably the best source for everything and anything Warriors in Quiet Waters.
Awesome. Thank you, Saul.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Andrew, and thanks for having me. And I wish everybody the best, especially everybody who's just trying their best right now. I wish you all everything that I could give you.
If you have questions, comments, feedback, or want to suggest a guest, please reach out to @HardwayPod on social, or email me at choosethehardway@gmail.com. Please take a moment to hit 5 stars in Spotify or iTunes and leave a 1-word review. That helps more people connect with the powerful stories my guests share, and I really appreciate the support. You are what you overcome. Choose the hard way.